Today, many students go to college with numerous questions about their faith, yearning to know if the seed planted in them as a child is both true and practical. Using the miracle on the road to Emmaus as a model, young adult ministers conversed weekly for 3 months with college students about the most pressing questions they had about the Catholic faith. As they journeyed together virtually, something amazing happened. Doubts disappeared, fears faded, and Jesus revealed that He is still alive. Hearts Burning Within Us, the latest book from Patchwork Heart Ministry, is a result of that grace-infused conversation. It is the perfect back-to-school gift for recent high school graduates and current college students. Get your copy for them today at patchworkheart.org or by calling 424-704-3278. That's 424-704-3278. Welcome to the Sowing Hope podcast. This is a show all about implanting hope in our hearts. I'm Bill Snyder, joined by my friend Dan DeSantis. We're glad you're here for our uplifting conversation about faith and how it sustains our hearts through all the seasons of life. Thanks for walking with us.
Hello, and welcome to the Sowing Hope podcast. This is Ann DeSantis, and my co-host Bill Snyder will not be joining us this time around. So we say hello to Bill, wish him well, and hope that he's having a good day. But and thank him for being able to host this podcast, as I am joined by an amazing guest. I have Harley Packer, and I'm going to read you his bio. He is a happy, healthy, grateful man who lives with his wife, Philomena, in Coaldale, Alberta, Canada. They enjoy spending time with family, especially the 4 grandchildren. They also love the outdoors and spend a lot of time in the mountains, camping, hiking, biking, and snowshoeing. Harley grew up in Estevan, Saskatchewan, Canada. By the age of 15, Harley had dropped out of school, was abusing drugs and alcohol, and was regularly in trouble with the police. Then a series of events, including the death of his father, helped him realize there must be more to life. And it was at this point he had a life-changing experience of God's love and forgiveness and began a whole new life. Since then, Harley has studied theology and psychology at the Franciscan University of Steubenville in Steubenville, Ohio, and world religions at the University of Saskatchewan. Over the past 25 years, he's been involved in various volunteer and paid ministries and has spoken at many parish and high schools in Canada and the USA. In 2015, he launched PrayForTheProdigal.com in response to Pope Francis' extraordinary Jubilee Year of Mercy. His goal as a Catholic speaker is to help people overcome fear, anxiety, and hopelessness with faith, hope, and love. Wow, that is an amazing bio. Welcome, Harley. Thank you so much for joining us on the Sowing Hope podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's amazing to have you here. I absolutely love your bio. I love your mission. And I want to invite people to check out that website that you mentioned, which is prayfortheprodigal.com. Make sure you jot that down or check it out as we're here on the podcast. So let's start out with, let's just start out with right now. How are things for you and your family right now after this year of COVID?
We're super grateful because through the whole pandemic, everybody stayed healthy. My wife and all my family, the two boys and their families, the grandchildren, everybody remained healthy. And everybody, was still working. I was able to keep working, kind of juggle things and keep busy. And same with the kids and my wife. So yeah, just super grateful for that because, as you know, I did on both of those fronts. So many people got devastated, right? So many people got sick, just about lost their lives. And at the same time, they lost their livelihoods, right? Because of all the economic rock and roll that was going on and everything. So yeah, super grateful for that. We just actually, the province of Alberta was the first province to fully reopen and get things back in gear. And that happened on July 1st, which is Canada Day for us. So that was a great little celebration. So I'm excited now to be kind of back on the upswing. Things are starting to pick up. I'm looking forward to, I've got some new speaking stuff scheduled and I'm looking forward to kind of getting that going again, get back in the game now.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And happy Canada Day. I know that was July 1st and we celebrated July 4th. Of course, last year we didn't get to do the normal celebration because of the pandemic. So how great was it this year that we were able to kind of get back to normal. So thanks for sharing on that piece
You
too.
bet.
Yeah. Now you have an amazing bio, honestly. Looking at all the things that you're involved with. Of course, your family and your grandchildren and the camping, the hiking, also the work that you do with ministry. Let's start out with your early life, because I know that, it was quite a journey at that very beginning and then with your conversion. Please do tell us that story.
Okay. Yeah. Well, as I mentioned in the bio, in my earlier years, things actually went quite fine and I was doing well in school, had lots of friends, played golf in the summer, hockey in the winter, and even went to church once in a while with mom and dad. But yeah, the teenage years, things just started to go sideways and seriously abusing drugs and alcohol. Like I mentioned, in trouble with the law all the time, fighting with my family all the time. And actually in grade 11, I just decided to drop out of school and take up full-time partying. And was really quite fully committed to that, right? Everything, right? This was back in the 80s and the battle cry was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And we did all of that to the nines. And of course, that started to backfire pretty quickly, right? I soon began to realize that things were starting to fall apart. But there's one little story that I always share, and it's always kind of hard to explain. I still don't quite fully understand it, but I'll do my best to explain it to you here. This was kind of at the heart of the partying, and a few friends and I, we went out and actually did some acid, LSD, amongst other things. We were probably drinking and smoking pot at the same time. And I went home in the evening and went to bed. And as soon as I lie down, that there was some kind of restlessness and agitation that came over me. And this feeling just grew, kind of intensified, gradually sort of intensified and grew more and more frightening, actually. And it intensified to the point where, like, I was terrified. I had no idea what was going on. It felt like something evil, dark was sort of pressing in, trying to suffocate me almost. And so in the midst of all this, all of a sudden, a prayer came into my head, and it was the Our Father. Right now, I hadn't been. I went to Catholic school when I was younger. Hadn't been to. I was in a public high school, so I hadn't been anywhere near anything Catholic for quite a while. Hadn't been going to church, of course, but somehow this Our Father came into my mind in the midst of this experience, and so I decided to pray it. And the most amazing thing, by the time I was done praying that prayer, whatever that darkness, blackness was, whatever that was, it was just gone. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. And, teenager, right? Living in the moment. I kind of rolled over, went to sleep, woke up the next morning and thought about it for a minute. Thought, yeah, that was kind of strange, but didn't really think too much about it at the time. Looking back now, I realized that was just really, that was God starting to knock on my door, right? I carried on after that, same old reckless lifestyle. And then after that, actually all of my partying and reckless lifestyle started to catch up with me. You see, I had all these fines. I was getting all these like reckless driving fines, possession of marijuana fines and stuff like that. And see, I didn't believe in work at the time either, so I didn't have any money to pay for them. And eventually my parents kind of got wise to the situation, and they decided to stop bailing me out, which was probably a good thing on their part. And so I ended up in this situation where I had all this legal trouble and had no money to pay my way out of it. So what the court did is it sent me to do community service hours instead of paying for the fine, right? And they sent me to this place where it was a community center for people with mental and physical disabilities, right? And there was staff there that helped them with their daily tasks and whatnot. And so they sent me there for a couple of weeks just to help out, do whatever I could. And the staff there was just unbelievable, right? It just really got my attention when I saw how kind and generous and just how natural and kind of really kind and loving they were with these people who were handicapped. That was amazing to me because as an arrogant, ignorant teenager, we used to actually make fun, right, of the retards that we called them in the day. That's awful, but that's just the way it was. So this really made me think, and I was beginning to see at this point that my life I was beginning to sort of get the sense that my choices were probably not the best choices. And so this again just really made me think. And once again, God just knocking on my door, right? And then it wasn't too long after that my father actually got sick, and he grew progressively more ill to the point where he had to quit work, and he ended up in the hospital. And for whatever reason, nobody really told me too much of what was going on. So, one time my mom and I were there visiting Dad in the hospital. And all of a sudden, Dad, there was a moment, kind of a lull in the conversation. Dad, he said, "Har, come over here and give me a hug." So he'd never hugged me before, but we really didn't have any kind of connection at all. But I went over there, I bent over, and I wrapped my arms around him. And while my head was close to his, he whispered in my ear, and he said, Har, take care of Mom for me. And you know what? I was so oblivious at the time, so like out of the loop, and whatever. I didn't get it, right? I'm like, what? What do you mean? But I understand now. I see very clearly what he was saying was that he was dying, and he needed me to step up and be the man of the house and take care of Mom.
And excuse me, at what age were you at this point around? Were you still in your teenage years?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. 16-ish.
Okay.
And yeah, of course, he had cancer, and it was a short time after that he passed away.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's, but the day he died was obviously, it was very difficult to, because it just hit me right between the eyes that all of a sudden my father is gone, right? The man whom I call Dad is now gone. I would never see him again. And that just crushed me, because I thought, oh my goodness, I will never, ever have the opportunity to get to know this man in any way, shape, or form. So it was such an awful feeling, but at the same time, it was really an amazing, one of the most amazing and life-changing days of my life, because you see, my mom, still a good Catholic, she called the priest of our local parish to come in and perform last rites, sacrament of the sick. And so into this situation walks Father Ken. And just to give you a little background, of course, I don't know if you've ever seen anybody die of cancer, but it's an awful, awful scene, because usually what happens is the pain is so severe that the nurses, of course, usually give the patient very heavy morphine.
Yes.
So my dad was there, very, very heavily sedated, in extreme pain, off the charts. And so basically he was there sort of lying in the bed, moaning, thrashing, right? It was just an awful, awful scene. And we had actually tried to sort of nudge him, talk in his ear and see, but there was just nothing. It was like he was already gone in some ways. So into this scenario walks Father Ken, and he speaks with us briefly. Then he goes over and just walks over to the side of Dad's bed and reaches down and grabs his hand, and all of a sudden, everything settled, right? He just grabbed Dad's hand, and all of a sudden, Dad just stopped thrashing and moaning and settled right down. His eyes opened up, and he actually had was able to kind of talk to Father Ken for a minute or two, pray with him. And then it was just a short time after that, he passed away peacefully. And of course, I'm seeing this. I'm over on the other side of the room. I'm watching, and my jaw is on the floor, because I'm pretty sure at this point that I have just witnessed a real, live God miracle right in front of my face.
Sounds like you did.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, and my mind is going a million miles an hour. I'm thinking, wow, was that really just God? Was that a miracle? And is God really real? And what does this mean for my life? And of course, the timing, I was really, really beginning to realize that my life was going off the rails, and it was probably time for something new. So, I was thinking, well, what if God is really real? And, what does this mean for me? And I thought, I got nothing to lose at this point, so I'm going to start going back to church. And so I went to started going to Mass. And then one Saturday night in Mass, right at the end, a young lady got up and she started talking about this retreat weekend for teenagers. And, she made it very, very interesting. She says, "Are you out there? You got questions about your faith? Are you wondering if God is real?" And she's saying listing off these points. And I'm like, "Yeah, check, check, check. That's me. That's me." And I will also confess at this point that this young lady was also quite attractive. So, she had my attention on a couple different levels, and, but God works in mysterious ways, right?
That's right.
There you go.
And you were still late teen at this point, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 16-ish. Yeah. It all happened in a fairly short period of time. So I made a decision to go on to this retreat weekend, and long story short, that was the game changer. Oh my goodness. I met all these other young people who Catholic, Christian, on fire, so alive. And I was, again, just struck by how kind and generous they were. And they could see, it was obvious that they could see that I was in a bad spot. And it was so obvious that they just wanted to help and to do anything they could to help me get to a better place. And I, they were sharing their testimony, different stories throughout the weekend. And I all of a sudden, the Bible story became very clear, Jesus and his life and the amazing life that he lived. And of course, the death on the cross, pouring out his life for us, for the forgiveness of our sins. And it just all became very clear. And so, yeah, that was the game changer. That was over 30 years ago. That I chose to become a follower of Christ. And to this day, that is still the very best decision that I have ever made.
What a story. Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, it's more than a story. This is your life that was lived and experience that you had. And I don't have any doubt that the soul of your father was also praying for you as you went through all that you went through during that time and how you found God in your life. So how amazing. And you really offer a lot of hope, especially to people who are in sort of a dark place. After this past year, there are people who got involved in, things that they shouldn't, drugs, alcohol, addictive
Absolutely.
behaviors and things like that. So, and they have children who are involved in it, and hearing that someone like you was able to be transformed by God and brought to a much better place. Where not only are you living your faith, but you're also evangelizing now too. So that's really beautiful. And so thank you so much for sharing. So kind of then what happened in the young adulthood there? Because obviously, you got married, you had kids. We'd love to hear kind of where the story picked up at that point.
Well, things were, it was a real, things turned around very fast. One of the most amazing things is being able to go to the Franciscan University of Steubenville. And that's another sort of miraculous story in and of itself. Of course, we were in Estevan, Saskatchewan. My father had just passed away. He worked for the post office, a mailman, basically. So, he didn't make a lot of money. He didn't leave us a lot of money. And my mom at the time was working as a laundry aide in a nursing home. And so after my conversion, I started going to a prayer group, and I heard from the other people in the prayer group, I heard about this Franciscan University of Steubenville. And I just knew that I was supposed to go, right? So I went and talked to my mom about this, saying, Mom, I want to go to this private Catholic university down in the States for 4 years. And she just about passed out because, she knew there was just no way. We just didn't have the resources to make this happen. Somehow, I was just so on fire about this whole thing. I actually managed to make an appointment with the Archbishop of our diocese in Saskatchewan. part of it was, I was so turned on and so committed. I was even seriously thinking about the priesthood. And so that was, I think, part of his interest in meeting with me. But anyway, I went and shared and told him the story, much as I just shared with you, and something touched his heart. And essentially, he wrote me a check.
Did he?
Yeah, for 4 years of university.
Oh, you're kidding.
Oh, what a gift! What a gift!
What a gift!
Oh man, yeah. So the further I get away from that, the more amazing it becomes. And some of the circumstances around it as well. When I went and told other people after what was going on, their jaws were on the floor, because I'm not sure if you're familiar with Franciscan University, but it's a pretty dynamic, charismatic, kind of cutting edge university. I mean, they've gone through some ups and downs here in the last few years, but especially back then, it was really, I would say, on the cutting edge of the charismatic renewal and whatnot. This bishop was sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of, very sort of traditional, kind of conservative. So I was telling people that, he's going to send me to Steubenville. And they were like, what? How is that even possible? Right? So something, Holy Spirit miracle working again. And again, the generosity, the mercy, the gift, right? Because he just said go, and he said no strings attached, nothing. And again, when I told people about that just blew their mind as well, because you see, if a bishop is if someone is inquiring about the priesthood, and a bishop is going to support them, 99 times out of 100, the bishop is going to say, okay, well, here, I'll support you. You go here, and then you come back to our diocese and study in our seminary. Right? But he was just so no strings attached about the whole thing, that it's such a gift. And that education, I'm just eternally and so deeply grateful for that, because it was not so much a career academic thing. It was a life education, right? I mean, I had the opportunity to study theology and psychology. So in that, and, kind of in the liberal arts environment of that kind of university, I got a life education, right? I think I got all the really basic fundamental life principle schooling that I don't think my parents were really able to give me, and it's a foundation that has been solid under my feet until today,
That's beautiful. Yeah, I'm very familiar with Steubenville.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's a pretty big charismatic group here in the area that I live in. And that's when I got introduced to Steubenville, and know some people who went there. And of course, Bill and I on this podcast, we've interviewed a lot of people who were either involved. Bill even interviewed on his podcast, Young Catholics Respond, Dr. Scott Hahn. So
sure. Yeah.
That was amazing too. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. So you had your experience there at University of Steubenville, and so how did you and your wife meet? And then tell us your story there too, with the family and how that got started.
Okay, sure. Well, I've been I went to Steubenville, and I was a bit of a itinerant, right? I went off to Arizona, did a few different things. And it wasn't until quite a bit later that I met my wife. So I went out and got involved in a few different ministries and a few different things. And it wasn't until 1995, that I actually ended up in southern Alberta. And at the time, I was teaching guitar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I've done a few different things, and music has always been a sideline for me. And yeah, teaching guitar at a music store. And she came in with her youngest boy. And so I was teaching him guitar lessons, and I was invited the parents to come so they could see what was going on, during the guitar lessons. And so she was there, and of course we got chit-chatting a bit, and I found out that she was Catholic, and single. Her husband had actually just passed away a couple of years earlier.
Okay.
And so yeah, I really felt an attraction for her. And then one day, her son at the guitar lesson, he had brought his guitar tuner to the guitar lesson. He had forgot it, so I thought, well, being the good Catholic boy that I am, I should probably return this, see if I can take it back. And so she tells, I phoned her and asked her if I could bring this back. And she tells a funny story too. Because she was on the phone, and I asked if I could bring him back. She was like, "Oh no, don't worry about that." And her sister-in-law happened to be there with her. And she kind of knew what was going on the phone, so she was kind of like, "You let him bring that," because she had already been talking to her about me, right? And so, and long story short, she let me bring it out, and again, so that kind of got the ball rolling. And then when I was there at her house, I noticed that she had a guitar as well. So I asked her if I could play it a little bit. And I said, "Oh, this is this nice guitar. The strings are a little bit old and it needs a little bit of a tuning. Can I take it?" And right. So I bought myself another opportunity to come back and see her. Well, and so the second time, and then I was able to go back and see her again. And of course that just got the ball rolling. And yeah, we started a relationship from there, and we just celebrated 20 years.
Wow,
Here, let me show you.
good.
There's our in Hawaii.
Beautiful.
Hawaii, 20 years, right on in Maui. We went out
Beautiful
to Hawaii.
Picture. He's showing, now this is an audio podcast, so they can't see they can't see the picture, but I'm looking at a beautiful picture of he and his wife in Maui. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, beautiful story. And so tell us a little bit about the kids too.
Again, I brag about the kids all the time. They're both the boys are just incredibly mature and considerate. They're both very hardworking, really, really doing a great job at taking care of their families. And again, the great thing is everybody lives very close, right?
Nice.
So we have Sunday suppers regularly with the whole clan. And actually, just since everything opened up, we just kind of had everybody over on Sunday night again, right? We were quite used to that. We still did it even a bit during COVID, right? My wife is also Italian, right? So try and keep an Italian woman away from her family. Like good luck with that, right?
My husband's Italian, I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, even during COVID, we kind of broke the rules a little bit. If, that's just our little secret, okay? Yeah, but we're so grateful because they come, and we have quite regularly, we have a house full, right? All the two boys and their spouses and the 4 grandchildren running around creating havoc. It's wonderful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Beautiful story. Wow. And it's still unfolding, right? I mean, your story isn't over. I mean, you're only like maybe midway through your life, probably a lot more than that. So let's talk about your ministry now, because I know that you have a lot of hobbies. I mean, I noticed when we were reading through the bio that you're involved in camping and hiking and biking and snowshoeing. So in addition to those hobbies, I would love to hear about the ministry work that you're doing.
Ever since I went to Steubenville, like I recognized that that was a gift, and I knew I was deeply convicted that my life would have a missionary purpose. Right, that time in Steubenville, my conversion was such a gift. I just knew that I was going to have to share that in one way, shape, or form. And over the years, I've been involved in various types of ministry. My wife and I sing in church, right? We sing in church once a month, and we love doing that. That's just a simple, basic ministry that we're pretty committed to. I worked with Child and Family Services for 13 years, and that sort of came to a head in about 2003, 2004. I was really sort of getting the sense that there was something else going on, right? And again, I needed to explore different things. And essentially through a series of events, I really felt called to start speaking, to go out sharing, right? Sharing this message, sharing the healing, the mercy, the grace, the beauty, the power of God that I was experiencing more and more every day. So I took the steps and, started getting some training, started developing a website, and that's the Prayer for the Prodigal website that I launched in 2015. But the really cool thing about that was when I was developing Prayer for the Prodigal, I chose the prodigal son story as a central theme, with a heavy emphasis on mercy. And this was all sort of evolving in 2014. And just finally, kind of got that up and rolling, dotted the I's and crossed the T's with all that. And all of a sudden I hear that Pope Francis is going to declare an extraordinary Jubilee year of mercy.
Mm.
And I was like, wow. Okay, so this is good. This is going to be a good time to be talking about mercy, right? Because Pope Francis is putting it out there front and center. And so, that's like the prodigal son story, the mercy, the grace that I've experienced, and this love of God, this grace and this power that continues to unfold, I think is just particularly critical and relevant, especially for today. Again, my goal as a Catholic speaker is to help people overcome fear, anxiety, and hopelessness with faith, hope, and love. And especially with all that's been going on in this pandemic, it just seems particularly critical and relevant because, people, of course, as you well know, fear, anxiety, and hopelessness seems to be on the rise these days. And so,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I just want to, do whatever I can. I do retreats, conferences, parish missions. I've just got signed up with a local retreat house to do something in the fall. I do youth events, both in person and online. But I mean, the main thing is to help people understand, to receive that gift of mercy, really sort of experience that deep gift of love and grace, to be able to move on. And I think one of the best examples of that was from a parish mission that I did back in 2018. And I always ask for feedback. I always get written feedback from the participants. And I got one note from a lady who was at the parish mission, and essentially she said she had just in the few years previous to the parish mission, She had lost both her spouse and a child, tragically.
Wow.
And yeah, hard to imagine. And so this whole thing had just sent her into a deep, dark spiral of depression, and basically the way she described it was she was stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Stuck. And she said, after your mission in our parish, I got unstuck.
Well, that's huge. That is so huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Was able to kind of, she was able to kind of, get some hope, get some life in her soul again, and start moving forward with some hope and purpose. And so to me, that's success, right? That's hitting the mark. For anyone who needs it. And I kind of, I sort of, to a certain degree, feel I'm in a bit of a unique lane as well, because I find, so often when I hear people talking about faith, and a lot of the books I encounter, and even preaching from the pulpit, it's so often about, sort of the criterion for moral behavior, and who's in, who's out, and what you have to do to get into the next life. And I mean, that's all of course important, but I think we sort of place an inordinate amount of emphasis on all of that stuff.
Because we still have to live right now.
That's right.
That's right. And it can't just be about when we die. It has to be the way that we live now, then eternity can start at this moment, right?
Amen to that. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And that's kind of the one of the things that I will say 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways when I'm speaking is that Jesus told us in several different ways that the kingdom of heaven is in our midst. And, for me, that's just not a historical event in a historical context when he was walking the face of the earth. To me, it goes so much deeper, and it means that God is very present to us right now through grace in so many different ways, right? In good food, in friendship, in family, in nature. And it's all just gift.
Amen.
And I've learned, it's just so much more about receiving it, right? Rather than trying to grasp it and earn it. It's so much more about just opening up and receiving it. And what happens for me and for other people that I talk to when they're able to sort of just surrender and receive that grace and that blessing, that they get freed up, right? That they get some real freedom inside, some real joy and real peace. And then they go on to become joyful and generous, peaceful people who other people look at and they say, what is that you got? I want some of that, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That makes me think too, on the note, if you don't mind, for somebody who might be listening, who is thinking, wow, that sounds amazing. I would love to do that. But yeah, you're right. Use that word stuck. I do think that people do get stuck sometimes. I know I've seen that in my own life before, and watched it in other people's lives. And would you, for that person who wants faith, they want to quote, feel better, but it's just not happening. Would you have any words of advice for them as far as being able to be patient and waiting for that moment to happen when they say, you know what, life is finally starting to get a little bit better?
The one thing I do share in my parish missions is that, of course, it doesn't happen overnight.
Yes.
You have to be really committed to that. And again, God will do what God will do. I mean, there are cases where there's the cases of miraculous healing, very speedy recovery from things like depression and anxiety and stuff like that. But I think for most of us, at least for me, it's been a real gradual sort of discipline, right? And I think one of the keys to that is committing yourself to gratitude.
Attitude of gratitude.
Attitude of gratitude. If to get unstuck, wake up in the morning, open your eyes, be thankful that you've got eyes to open. Breathe, be thankful that you have breath in your lungs. Look up, if you have a roof over your head, be thankful that you have a roof over your head, right? If you can go out into your kitchen and eat, gosh, I mean, it just starts to pile up, and those things, and this is just not my pet theories. This is stuff that's been time tested and proven for centuries now, right? To work.
Yeah, they're great pieces of advice, because we can't really get unstuck unless we look at what we have in front of us and say, you know what, there are some blessings here, even if they're not the blessings that I want at this exact moment. I want more than, some people might say, I want more than just what I see in front of my face here, but you have to look at what's there in front of you and say, you know what, God has gotten you to this point, and trust him. Trust him that he will get you to that next point. Does that mean that all of your relationships will be perfect, or that you will get that perfect job, or that, your enemies will flee from your life? Not always, but it does mean that God is going to sustain you and bring new people. And I think he brings new people into your life too.
Absolutely.
New people that help to guide you into a better direction. So that's why we call this podcast Sowing Hope, because having a guest like you, Harley, is a wonderful thing for us, because that's what we're all about. So I just thank you so much for this beautiful sharing that we're doing. Now, we have about 5 minutes left or so of the show. I wondered if, before we end the podcast, if you could tell us what's going on this coming year for you, and any other calls to action that you want people to know about your mission.
Well, again, I think if people go visit the website, prayerfortheprodigal.com, they can see all that I do. All my keynotes are listed, and I can do those. There's three main keynotes. I can do that as a 3-day parish mission. I can do them individually. Fully equipped to do stuff online. So that means we can cross borders now and go anywhere in the world that we want to online in any form or fashion. One of the things that I like on my website, one of the things I share is that I only ask for donations for my services. Right. I tried for a while. I tried charging a set fee, and I just couldn't be at peace with that. Right. Just simply because this is so much that I have been given so freely. And so I just have to kind of give it away. Right. And so I have only asked for donations for my services. And fortunately, again, anytime I've done that for parish missions or anything else, the donations have just far exceeded my expectations. Right. Beautiful. So, and I'm kind of fortunate in a way that, I sort of, this is a part-time thing. I'm ready for whatever God wants to do with this, but it is sort of a part-time thing. I have other, like I teach music as well. So I do not need to absolutely rely on my income from this speaking thing to carry on. So it just affords me a great deal of flexibility. And the cool thing about it is that I can, again, offer to go places where other speakers may not go because of their fees and stuff like that. And that, where I was describing the woman who got unstuck, that was in a parish mission way in northern Alberta, sort of out in the boondocks, they said they don't get speakers there very often, right? So That's the one thing I don't want people. I don't want the dollar bill to be an obstacle to having people speak. I like when people say. I like when people are creative. They say, well, how about this? Can we do this? I'm a musician as well, so I always add music, and I've got a page on my website that features music as well. So we can add, lots of music to things, do little concerts and stuff like that. Yeah, and I just started. I just started with a local retreat house. I will be reaching out to other retreat houses in Western Canada, and I'm hoping to kind of just grow from there.
Yeah, I love the work that you're doing. Bill and I are both grateful. Although Bill's not with us again, we say our hellos, as I'm sure he's listening to this as it's being put out there and produced. So Harley, thank you so much for being a guest. Any final words before we end?
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It's just been such a great opportunity to connect. I've just found a whole new community. Like it started with that OSV challenge, and that has just opened up so many new doors, and I've met so many amazing people like yourself. And I'm excited about the possibilities.
Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities there. We will keep you in our prayers. We hope to have you back again on the Sowing Hope podcast. And I want to invite people to please do check out prayfortheprodigal.com. I'm speaking with Harley Packer. And also, please do check out our website at patchworkheart.org. We have a brand new book that just came out. It's called Hearts Burning Within Us. And it's a book that's geared for young adults, who are actually in college, and answers many of the questions that they have about their faith.
Nice.
So for Bill Snyder and myself, we will all see you next time here on the Sowing Hope podcast. God bless.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Sowing Hope on Patchwork Heart Radio. For more information about this podcast and our ministries, visit our websites, patchworkheart.org and DeSantis.com. You can also follow and interact with us on Twitter at PWH Ministry or DeSantis 2.